Anytime that we discuss something like organized harassment or the topic of gang stalking, it's good to be mindful of what terms you use when speaking with someone who's not already familiar with the topic. It doesn't matter so much what terms you use when speaking with another TI or targeted individual, because they already know exactly what you're talking about. But if you're speaking on a public platform or even posting a YouTube video, it's good to keep the same things in mind that you would think about when you are talking to someone one-on-one about the subject who doesn't already know about it. And this includes just being mindful of certain terminology that you use. Someone else who's been through gang stalking will certainly see no stigmatism in these terms, but if the only familiarity with the term targeted individual that someone who you're conversing with has is a random video that they stumbled across by someone who may have been talking about a part of this that is completely foreign or unfamiliar, or speaking about things that most people have no understanding of. In their mind, they may have a certain relation to that term that will actually work against you when you are talking to them. So when speaking with someone or even a group of people who don't really know what comes along with the term targeted individual or with gang stalking, you may be able to use terms like, and you've heard me, if you've seen any of my earlier videos, you've probably heard me use the term targeted person, or a term personalized harassment, something that means exactly the same thing, but it sidesteps some of these stigmas that are already in place. And this is only a way to get the same information across, but without stepping on the landmine that is certain terminology that can, in fact, work to go against what you're trying to explain. Now, it doesn't affect the information that you're presenting. It only affects the perception in that person's mind or that group of people's thinking. So when speaking about this, it may even help targeted individuals as a group or as a community to begin to sidestep certain terminologies that seem to already be stigmatized. And this way you can get information across to someone which is of the same quality, but without falling into terminologies that have already been branded by previous very limited and funneled perception by that person, and this may help when explaining some of these experiences to people. And this also comes into play when speaking about things like electronic harassment, remote weaponry, and things like that, because most people, and even some targeted people as well, don't know much about this. If they haven't gotten to this point in the harassment, then they may not know anything about it. But when speaking about this subject, and this is sort of, this video is covering two topics. Aside from, and they tie into each other a lot, because when talking about things like electronic harassment and this side of the subject, this is an area where it pays to be very careful about what terminology you use, because certain words that you say or use to describe it may bring up something very science fiction-y in someone's mind, and in reality it very much is that way. But unfortunately, the truth is that these things actually are documented and do exist. So I would very much recommend that that when speaking about this part of the subject, keep in mind that if you describe personal experiences with things like what's termed V2K and things like that, just keep in mind that if someone doesn't know or hasn't researched very in depth into this, you will most likely, or nearly 100% of the time, you will sound, quote, crazy, unquote, nearly all the time, or 100% of the time, when discussing things like electronic weapons and V2K. And this is another psychological aspect of this, but not so much on the perpetrator side. This is more on the terminology side, and this comes into play heavily when discussing the electronic part of all of this. You can give all the patent numbers that you like, all the documentation, records, all the Army documents, all the companies who have researched into this technology that you want, but if someone's already branded these terminologies in their mind, they've already shut down to what you're saying. So it's very important to number one, if possible, sidestep things that have been stigmatized in terms of terms that are used, and do continue to give patent numbers, do continue to do research, and do continue to provide documentation. But just keep in mind that these things are very, unless you are someone who has personally experienced such things, or you know someone personally who has experienced this, it may work in your benefit to discuss it, but again, discuss this in a matter-of-fact way. Do continue to record things, provide documentation, and to research it. Just keep in mind that when certain terminologies are used, and not only in this topic, not only in the umbrella topic of gangstalking, but any topic that you discuss with someone, if certain stigmatized terms are used or begin to get used, there are people or groups who you will talk to that when they hear these terms, they will immediately shut down. So it certainly works in the benefit of your cause to move away from certain terms and to be very factual and provide concrete documentation for these things, because there's a lot of information that the overwhelming majority of people have never reviewed. They've never seen these things, and they're not aware of all of this yet, and they've already got ideas around certain terms and words. So this is an important thing to keep in mind when discussing.